Hello dear student and my friends. We already discussed about demand curve in our previous video. So there is one thing to be understand types of demand curve. When we talk about demand curve, there is two types of demand curve: individual demand curve and market demand curve. We already discussed in our previous video about demand schedule types. There are two types of demand schedule: individual demand schedule and market demand schedule. So like this, demand curve also two types: individual demand curve and market demand curve. So let's go for a demand in individual demand curve. What is the individual demand curve? You know about demand curve, but what is individual demand curve? We also discussed about demand schedule and individual demand schedule. So individual demand schedule, what is the individual demand schedule? We also discussed about individual demand schedule is a tabular presentation of individual demand. Okay, so when we reflect our data in a table, so we get individual demand schedule, and after that when we discuss about demand curve, so demand curve is a graphical representation of demand schedule. Like this, demand schedule is also tabular presentation of demand, individual demand. So individual demand curve is, we can say, individual demand curve is a graphical representation of a demand schedule, of a individual demand schedule, which reflect the relationship between different possible prices of a commodity and different quantity demanded. We also discussed about it. There is one word to be add in demand curve: individual demand curve. Individual individual demand curve is a graphical representation of a individual demand schedule which reflect the relationship between different possible prices and different quantities demanded. We also know. So no problem for individual demand curve. Like this, market demand curve. If you are going to learn market demand curve, like individual demand curve, that's all things are same as a individual demand curve. Demand curve is a graphical representation of demand schedule. So market curve, demand curve is a graphical representation of market demand schedule. Market demand curve is a graphical representation of market demand schedule. And other thing is same, which reflect the relationship between different possible prices of a commodity and different quantities demanded. No any different. When we discuss about individual demand curve, there is a consumer demand, and after that we discuss about market demand curve. There is a market demand, we can say all consumer demand, all consumer demand. So we are going to present on a graph individual demand. We are going to present on a graph, that is individual demand curve. And if we are going to represent our all consumer demand on graph, that's called market demand curve, nothing else. So there is a very simple about individual demand curve and market demand curve. One thing is that when we discuss about demand curve slope is downward, so we can say individual demand curve slope is also downward, and market demand curve slope is also downward. That's the reason, because of price of commodity and quantity demanded relation in we can say adverse relationship between prices of a commodity and quantity demanded. If price increase, quantity demanded decrease. If price decreases, quantity demanded increases. That's the law of demand. We will discuss in our next session about the law of demand. So you understood what is individual demand curve and market demand curve. That's final, and I am thankful to all of you. You are going very well. You are going very well. My video likes, sharing, and subscription. So thankful to all of you, and also request like, share, and subscribe my channel. Click on bell icon so we will connect, and I can give more information, more knowledge about economics and commerce subject. Thanks to all of you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.